Oh, wow. All right, Glenn. So we are back here on Poppitt's Corner. Glenn, how you doing, man? Thanks for coming on and hanging. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I've been doing pretty good, getting up there in age, but still ready to rock, man. So I'm doing all right, man.
So talk to me a little bit about what you've been up to since we last chatted, because it's been, I think the last time I saw you was maybe the Don't Turn Your Back premiere a couple years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, it was that. And the last time I think our last interview was for that documentary. So I know I went on one time before. I think it was before that. So it's been a while. It's been, yeah, I think about a year or two now, I think. Um, wow, time flies, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
it'll be two
yeah. So
years.
yeah, it has been actually because I mean I know it was before my band Primal's our album Hugh Machine has now been out over 2 years, and I can't believe it's been that long. Already it's just like where to go.
Well, we both have been busy or whatever, but I obviously I wanted to bring you on here to talk about Primal and the new EP. I thought it was a full length. Is there a specific reason why you guys decided to do an EP this time around?
Well, basically, what it is it's kind of twofold. What I wanted to achieve is to have it's kind of like a compilation EP, really. There's three songs that are like two new songs and one song that we did a Spanish version of the song "End Times" that was on the Hugh Machine album. And our first album, we did a song with Rudy Sarzo called "Cautivos." I know it's in des temas. I don't know. I'm bad at Spanish, but so what we wanted to do was kind of put something together of a lot of the songs that we do on our live set with some new songs and make it really, affordable, because CDs can be a little pricey. So we wanted to do a digipack. And honestly, I just wanted to kind of create a sampler with some new songs on there. And Bill Rocks, our label guy, said, "Well, let's do an EP. Let's give them a little more songs for the money, So I learned a while ago not to just release two because it doesn't go too well. So we put a couple of songs that we really like that we play live, a couple rare versions, and that's what it is. But it's the idea is almost for new fans, more like a giveaway. I mean. Live. I mean, it's like here, have a CD. It's just kind of introduce new people to us.
And now you always are mentioning, playing to, I believe your singer's from Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. Got to
No, he's
clear.
from Argentina. Our drummer
Argentina.
Jorge, you remember him from Hyrax? He's from
That's right.
Argentina,
That's right.
and Alberto or Beto is from Argentina as well. That's how they knew each other. Beto was from a legendary band called V8, and later another band called Logos, and that's how he met Rudy Sarzo because Rudy came and produced an album for Logos, and that's how they became friends, and that's why he ended up recording on our album.
Have you been back to Argentina with this project? Am I missing something?
No, we've been there actually since I talked to you last. I've toured Europe and South America, Argentina. We did a couple shows here in the States. It's just it's weird getting shows here is very different now. But we do got one coming up I'll tell you about later. But yeah, we did Spain, we did Switzerland, and we did two runs in Argentina. And we do really well down there. We did well in Spain out of the country, every venue we fill up and we have a good draw. I mean, it's really we've been received pretty well. So yeah, loving it really.
Different how? In terms of is it harder to get shows out here, or is it just the risk reward is just a lot different nowadays in
Well,
the
it is different because we have to compete with tribute bands. Um, and I'm finding it a little difficult, like hooking up with other friends' bands and get a show together, because venues don't really want to book. I want to play, a pretty good room. I mean, I know a lot of places now are relegated to small bars, to go see an original show. And I just, I don't really like that. To be honest, it's like, I might as well be in a cover band, Um, so I like, playing in a decent room, that appears to be like a metal show. I mean, maybe play rent a theater or something and get some really good bands together, but it's just hard getting people together. And I think as, the scene has changed, all the venues, like I said, they do great with tribute bands and I see why, but they don't, if they would put a little more emphasis on original acts too, I think we could get those fans back if you have good bands.
Well, I think there's a couple bones of contention here when it comes to tribute bands, just in general, just because they're not prolonging like the state of music. They're I mean, obviously it's a payday, like that they bring people, it's nostalgia that plays a part in
Right.
almost everything. So with an original project, you haven't established that quote unquote nostalgia yet, even though you guys respectfully have been around a long time with plenty of other you guys all have catalogs of music so that you've
Right.
already maintained that nostalgia. But with a new band, obviously it doesn't correlate with that. But it seems like it's very interesting. I don't know really how to feel about tribute bands per se. Like I get the payday aspect, but is the long-term goal to prolong this type of music, or is it to get the payday? So I don't know. And then that obviously plays a detriment into like the original project being able to play venues. It might only be tribute bands going forward, like the
Well,
1970s.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is what I've noticed in a lot of promotion for shows, at the, like the Garden Amphitheater and Garden Grove or whatever. They're not even like promoting, like the bands. They'll like put together and make it look like A Day on the Green in '84, Van Halen, Scorpions, Judas Priest. And then they have in small little print the name of the band that's portraying that. So they're marketing, the main acts, you know, um, and not the name of, just like Priest or a band like that. I mean, it's like Judas Priest performed by, so I've noticed that that's a lot of the promotion is now, gearing up to like big festivals. ACDC, well, it's not really ACDC, it's a tribute of ACDC, and they're putting them all together and creating kind of festival events with tributes, which is cool, but it's not for me. It's like I'll wait for ACDC to come around, or Iron Maiden, or Judas Priest or whatever. And that seems to be when people come out in droves, or when the big bands play, you know. So, but it's all good, I mean, if we go wherever we go, I mean, like I said, we do fine in other countries, and we'll see what happens. We got a show coming up, and I'll give it out now. I mean, we're playing August 21st with Vicious Rumors at the Whiskey A Go Go. So we'll see how that goes. It's a Thursday night show. We'll have tickets, but we're giving tickets away, man. We just want people to come see us. So, meet us down at the gig, whatever. I don't let me know. But
Has has the scene changed though, just in terms of like being in an original project? Is it just much harder, like to on every level, getting the gigs and promoting records and like getting distribution? Is it how has that whole thing changed?
well, for us, distribution, and we got a good label with No Life to Metal Records and good distribution. That part's really good. I think the thing is, around in America mainly, like I said, it's out of the country. We do fine. In America, it's just a competition. Um, and it's getting promoters that have investment into it. So paying a band to come in to play, helping cover like travel expenses or anything like that. They don't want to do that anymore. I was trying to get us a gig up in the Bay Area, and I said, hey, we want a $500 guarantee, because, well, we got to travel, and we got to spend that $500 on gas and hotel. you know it's not coming in our pocket. It's just to cover expenses. And they're like, well, let me think about it. It's like, all right. So that's just kind of how it is. I get that, but it's all good. We're doing our thing. We get to make music, and we have avenues to put it out. So um, so we'll see what happens.
Now, I've noticed also, I mean, everything is just way more expensive nowadays, but it seems like metal still wants to like live in like 2010 where like people are guaranteed $100, and unfortunately, it's that money doesn't exist like it did back then. It doesn't get you as far. So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious why that particular aspect is the way it is nowadays.
Well, a
And
lot of it, I
yeah,
think a lot of it happened is a lot of people, because of the COVID thing, that really hit everybody hard. A lot of people lost a lot of money. A lot of people went out of business and trying to recoup from that. It's taken years to get back. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, honestly, as far as us making money, we don't. We put the music out. We do this because we love it. You know, I'm in my late 50s. I've had a career outside of music, so I can afford it. You know what I mean? So that's why. So we don't plan to. We'd love to make some money. Sure, it'd be great, but that unless you're Iron Maiden, nobody is making any money. You go to NAM, everybody is working a day job outside of that. You know what I mean? So I don't know any musician, in our level or slightly above us, say even to the Armored Saint level, who doesn't have a day job, doesn't have another gig. We all have to live and we have to support our families. And the music business isn't there to do that anymore. But you do it because it's in our blood. I mean, it's like I can't stop because I just love playing. I love writing and recording and creating. And so, that's why I work at a company. I've been there for 25 years because they have been supportive of me doing this, which is kind of lucky for me because not all the companies are like that. But, that's gives me the opportunity to keep doing it.
and has there been any change, any positive effects of the change since COVID till now in terms of just like I don't know, getting more opportunities of other states, or is it only you're just having trouble with California, or is it
No,
the whole?
it's kind of the same. It's really it's all about connections too, and being, connecting with agents. The one pet peeve I have about the music industry right now is the respect of actually returning a phone call or an email. It's like because you'll reach out to clubs or reach out to bookers and promoters and agencies. They don't even bother to send you back a message saying no. You know what I mean? Um, so I think it's just like everybody's just kind of stuck in their own little world, and they don't want to check out other things or see what other bands can offer or see if something's a good fit for them. I don't, it is strange. It's very different than it used to be. I think everyone's more jaded now, to be honest.
Now, where do you think this could potentially lead, though? Because this is a huge detriment to our community out here. Is like being able to have original bands and again prolong the scene. It seems like we're just solely relying on nostalgia and then bringing in tribute bands because it fits the mold of the nostalgic factor. I think it's kind of always been like that, but it seems just way more prevalent nowadays.
Well, yeah, because it's bang for your buck. You can count on it. Because I mean, you're a good tribute band, you're going to make money, and that's why clubs and bookers will book you. I mean, that's kind of I hate to say it, but that is what it is. Um, unless you go to a place where it's not like that, which that's what I find in where we've traveled in Europe and South America, where there's a lot of people who are still into original music. And it's always been that way. Even when I was in Hyrax and stuff, when we traveled out of the country, every show was tremendous. In the States, you always had to work harder. You always had to, really like put something together to get people to come out the door. Um, it's just what it is, I guess. It's like people, I just want to stay home. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it is.
Now, have you done anything outside of Primal per se in the last couple years? Are you doing like I don't know, like a guest solo on some things or working with other people? Is there any new stuff as far as like any other types of bands that you're working with?
Well, I mean, I spent time back in Deliverance, and that ended about a year ago now, maybe a year and a half. Um, And if you recall, I had a band, my kind of solo band called Final Decree. I'm kicking the tires on that again, just because I kind of want to do something for myself again. Um, and so I have the opportunity to do that. So that's kind of what I've got going on right now. So, um, there's going to be a new Primal record, and there's also going to be some Final Decree stuff. Now, the idea with Final Decree, um, what I want to do, it's kind of like not just new music, but I want to cover things that I did in the past. So, like the live set will consist of songs I did in Hyrax, some stuff I did with Deliverance, kind of like the songs I'm known for, that were did pretty well on albums. So I want to do kind of an overall kind of career thing. Hey, this, I mean, I wrote a lot of great material with Hyrax, and I don't get to play it anymore, and I think that's wrong. So, I'm putting together Final Decree again, and I got a singer that can handle that material, and so that's what I want to do with that too. So, who knows? But both bands are going to be active, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Interesting. It would be interesting for you. Obviously, you're talking about a career retrospective here, and it'd be interesting. I mean, now I literally just got done talking with the boys in Harrison, who obviously you're very well familiar with
Yeah.
here. It would be interesting, obviously, to maybe, I don't know if this is in the cards or whatever, but to bring somebody like that that's from your past and be able to play those same songs with would be very kind of a cool deal. I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Lance about getting together before, but they're just tied up to doing their own thing right now. I'd love to get and play with those guys again, but they got their thing happening, and all full force for them. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to announce the lineup yet, but I've got some players, that I'm looking at. Um, when we get closer, we'll make an announcement with that. But I mean, like I said, I want to touch on stuff from even like the Vengeance Rising stuff, like White Throne, and stuff from Deliverance and Hyrax, and maybe even some Steel Vengeance, along with new material. So that way, the live set has, it's kind of a tribute band to me in a sense, because I'm playing, the songs that I wrote, like New Age of Terror, and Unleash the Dogs of War, and stuff like that. Maybe some songs from Assassins of War that I wrote. Um, so that way it covers, that kind of thing. It'll be really thrashy, obviously, because that's what I'm mainly known for. So, um, and some new stuff too. So, that's kind of what I want to do.
Now, I don't really know who's particularly in this project anymore, but I'm assuming the singer you have, would you do like a career retrospective with some of his material as well? Or is it, are you going to focus mainly on kind of what you're known for?
It's mainly what I'm known for, and the songs we're writing together. Um, so, like I said, because I've already got a couple things in the can for that, that I'm writing, um, and we're working on that together. So yeah, so it's going to be mainly, kind of a broad stroke of my career plus new stuff. So that's kind of just what it is.
Now, writing wise, how do you write differently with Primal than Final Decree?
Not really. I mean, it's the writing process is still the same. Um, with Primal, I tend to write a little more mainstream metal, kind of that cross between thrash and regular metal, because Beto's a more of a melodic singer. With Final Decree, it's going to really kind of lean a little more on the thrash elements, so that it coincides with the stuff that I wrote in the past. Um, so if you could put Hyrax and Deliverance together, that's kind of the genre that I'm shooting for.
And you're able to do this nowadays? I know you had some hand issues and whatnot. Are you fully recovered to be able to play this stuff? Because that's not easy to do.
No, it's not. with practice, I can do that. The issue isn't really the picking; it's more the fretting hand that was really the problem where I have the torn cartilage. Uh, but no, I mean it's I have to practice every day to keep it going, and I know that you've had issues as well, kind of similar to me. So it's kind of like you got to keep the bicycle riding. You know what I mean? So it's my half hour guitar time. I got to get the hands moving. And that's part of aging. But I mean, yeah, is it going to be perfect? Who knows? But it's going to be fun.
Is if you weren't able to say play music, is there another art form that you would like to delve into, or
Well, what I would probably do is, I enjoy recording, um, and I kind of got my own little recording studio as well. So I would probably venture into that, you know, um, kind of production kind of thing, because that's always fun. And I've always been a big film buff, you know. Um, I used to work for a movie theater way back a long time ago doing I did like maintenance and projection work. So what I would do is back in the day, we would get those big cans of 35 millimeter film, because a movie back in those days, they came in separate reels. You had to splice them together to make one big reel for a film, usually about between 6 and 8 reels. And you have to splice them together and match them all up. And that was a fun job. So, I mean, I'd, probably do something like that.
interesting? Have you ever made movies before?
I haven't made movies. I mean, other than shoot, band videos and stuff, but it's just projectionist work. But working on the like, I worked for a company called Sayufi Enterprises, which is now Century Media or Century Theaters, I guess you want to call it. Um, and so there, I was basically I managed the uh, the maintenance for a drive-in theater. So it's called the South Bay Six Drive-In, right? So it had six screens, so that's six projectors, two films per projector. Because you had an A feature and a B feature. So working on the sound system, working all that stuff that needed to be fixed up and kept up, and the light bulbs, the xenon bulbs actually that you use to for a camera. They're very sensitive and they can explode if you handle them wrong.
Now with recording in particular, would there be particular bands that you would be kind of like seeking out, like thrash bands or the more extreme stuff, or I would just be curious what you would want to record. What kind of music would it
To me, it would be, if someone needed a favor, hey, dude, can you do a demo for me? I just, yeah, let's go and mic up the drums and then, piece it together. I don't really care what kind of music it is. It's just, it'd be, it's just fun going through the process. And for me, it would be a way of learning and getting better at it, because that's kind of how I do it with Primal. I'll write a song, I'll make a demo on my, I got a 16 track system. And then I'll send that to the guys and they'll learn the parts and I'll go to the studio and we'll rehearse the parts up. Then I'll record it again with live drums with Jorge. Then take it back home and track guitars and bass and whatnot. And then, create a whole, basic song. That's how I did the whole Hue Machine record. Actually, I always did demos. I mean, even back with Hyrax, before I had the old 4-track cassette recorder, I would make demos with the drum machine and call up Caton and say, dude, meet me in Long Beach. And I'd go drive over halfway between, I was in Huntington and I'd meet him, halfway and give him a tape. Here, check out the new tune. That was all how New Age of Terror was written. I'd write the music and then reach out to him. Here, pick up another song. And then we'd pick the ones we want to put on the album. I mean, I had a few others leftovers that never got used.
Now, I want to kind of branch into a different territory, if you don't mind, just because I haven't talked to you in a while. Now there's this new thing that is, obviously AI is what I'm kind of referring to, and I would just be curious to hear somebody that of your caliber, and your history, if AI would be beneficial or a detriment just to like the future of music? What do you see kind of happening in terms of like how AI is going to play a part in all of this?
Oh, it's going to take over, dude. Any new technology, old guys like me are going to resist it, say, nah, nah. But new people, who love to play around with it are going to, start coming up with stuff, which they already have. Uh, you can't hold back the water. Sure, it'd be great if we use it in little spurts and little bits and pieces. It's okay. But I mean, it's like auto tune. When suddenly that became the thing, you don't have to sing in tune anymore. You just put it in the computer and splicing songs together. You don't have to worry about taking a take complete. You just put it, piece by piece, do the guitar solo once or the rhythm track once and copy and paste it. It's all for, saving time, and you're in a hurry, and that's it's kind of, there's good and bad to it. It's preference, whether you like it or you don't, or you can use it or not, but it's going to move forward, and people are going to use it if they're not using it now. They're going to create their own AI bands and their own AI songs, and it's funny, you talk about that. It's like my daughter, a lot of her favorite music is just music from video games, and a lot of that's AI and just, stuff and they just love that stuff. So, I show her my stuff and real stuff. She likes that too. She's a big Maiden fan. I take her to the concerts, so, but they kind of like a little bit of everything. They don't really have like, I'm a metaler and I'm a new wave guy and it's just like, yeah, whatever is popular, whatever, they can find that's fast and easy on the internet. They love it. So,
I remember in like the 2000s, it was like a no-no to use triggers. I don't remember if you remember this era, but there was a
oh
time
yeah,
in like
yeah,
the
yeah.
the late 2000s, early 10s, as I'll call them nowadays. Like it was a big no-no for a band to use triggers, and we used them because we didn't care. But I'd like to think that we were using it to our advantage and making it at least sound great. Like that's so I
Well,
think it just all depends how you use it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a tool like anything else, I mean, it depends on what you're using it for and how it comes across. I mean, if you're just sitting there press AI and say, create heavy metal song, and it spits out a heavy metal song, well, yeah, okay, you know, but if you're actually creating and writing and you need, the assistance, certain parts or whatever, you're trying to create, and you can use it, makes it fast and easier because we don't have $50,000 recording budgets, so we got to use the technology that's given, and that's the thing, like with triggers, because you don't have a world-class recording studio to get that bass drum sound and that snare sound right, but it's already there in the computer, it's already been done, so you trigger it, like Roland V drums, same deal. You use the tools. If you're honest about it and you're using it to create something with it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, and also too, I mean, just with us human beings, and again, we've been in bands, we know what it is like to work with musicians maybe who are a little flaky, don't show up for the recording sessions. You
Yeah.
may have to, may have to, and it is what it is. So like,
Oh, sure.
it depends, I guess, how you use it, and but I just remember it started, just even going to that back a little ways with the triggers or whatnot. I guess my point is it was a big no-no to do that, and then it's like a big no-no to do this, and then suddenly triggers were like it was allowed at some point. So maybe AI is going to be allowed at some point. Like we're going to get
Yeah.
used to it.
Like I said, it's just like holding back water. It's just impossible. Eventually, people are going to get over it and they're going to just use it, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's silly here, but in our house, you have that, like Siri or whatever it is to control your television. I don't want to use the voice activated stuff. I just want to press the button, and it keeps, hitting you up. Use this, collect, and I was just like, nah, I'm too old. I just want to press, the channel I want. I don't need to ask the TV, turn on, ESPN or whatever,
Now it's going to
So,
be interesting though with copyright and how that plays a part in all of this AI stuff.
well, you got to remember with copyright, it begins like when you come up with the idea and record it and have it timestamped, because that's kind of, it's kind of how it is now. And a lot of people like the old school, send your form into the government and pay your fee, and then you get the copyright. But if you come up with an original idea and you have it time stamped and you have it recorded, it's yours. With AI, it depends on, honestly, it just depends on, well, who's running the AI, who's the author. Does the computer get the copyright? I don't think so. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
even nowadays, when you put your music on streaming, like it even says in the terms and services, like, hey, we're going to be using your music to train our AI on, and then create. So, like, I don't know how that whole thing would work. Where does that whole thing stop and start?
yeah, it's like the cat's out of the bag. As far as like, you know, that's the whole thing with streaming now. I mean, dude, it's like I got songs all over the place. That I get barely a penny. For like 1,000 streams. You know what I mean? It's just music. It's just for. It's hard to make a living off of it because it's just too available, and the technology's out there to where it just takes it. So that's kind of the thing. You can copyright it, and you can say, yeah, don't steal it. Um, but it also depends on how much you have in your wallet. So like with a band like the big bands and the mega stars, that's not an issue because they got billions of dollars behind them, so they're taken care of. But us little guys, it's kind of like the days of the independent record companies are over. It's like when we were back in the Metal Blade days when they first started. Before they became a major, you could sell 10,000 copies and it would mean something. Now it's like, you can't even, it's just out there in the ether for everyone to grab. I mean,
Well,
it's just,
actually, I would say the complete opposite. I would say if you sell 10,000 records nowadays, that's a huge deal.
well, now it is, but the thing is they don't even print up 10,000 copies anymore. You know what I mean? It's like the avenue before the internet, you could sell records like Deliverance, our first album sold like about 30,000, 35,000 copies. You know, Vengeance sold I think, up to 70,000 copies on the first Vengeance record. You know, um, and bands could make a living at it. And but nowadays that just doesn't exist because there isn't an avenue or a label to put out that many records. I mean, our record deal is like we'll print out X amount of copies, give you so many copies, and then the deal done. I mean, because like I said, CDs are it's niche. Vinyl is niche. It's all collectors and people who are into that. Um,
I do want to ask you, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit here. Just ask, is that due to bands not owning their publishing? Because like a lot of bands, because they don't own their publishing, that's why they make a penny and whatnot. But I found like as an independent guy myself, like I don't, I don't make much, but it ain't a penny. I make a little bit more than a penny.
yeah, well, see, that's the thing between streaming. It's like, all right, so I own my own publishing, and I have for years. I learned that from the Deliverance days because I really got robbed pretty badly with that stuff from back in those days, and Vengeance and Deliverance and the songs, and that they didn't even pay me for years until I threatened to sue them. And then they finally turned around and sent me contracts, which I had to sign anything because I wasn't getting it, zero. So at least I got something. So I learned, make my own publishing company and own my songs. So I did that the whole time I was in Hyrax. I published my songs, everything that I wrote, all my portions. If the other person didn't like go sign up with ASCAP and take care of their paperwork, then that's their problem because then they go collect from them. I made sure that I was covered. So, you know, but even then, the thing about publishing, it's mainly about radio play and getting, covered from that. But the problem is internet radio is pretty much what's there, and they don't really report, how many times your song's played. I mean, and streaming services, that's just like kind of the wheel going round and round, so um, that's what I'm talking about when you get your pennies on the dollars as far as streaming services are concerned. So, yeah, publishing, like I said, it's not for small people. You're not going to make a lot of money on it. You'll make some. The reason why I do it is to at least protect myself, because that's more or less how I copyright my material, by publishing it, because then I establish ownership.
Well, and I've learned a lot just from doing films, and a lot of musicians don't even cover the basics as far as that goes in terms of like publishing and things like that. Nobody knows, nobody was ever taught that. Artists are just artists. They just create. They don't understand it's like music business, it ain't music friends. So like,
Yeah.
I
Well,
wish
that's
bands would understand that.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I had the advantage of knowing early in life, of having guys in the industry to help me along, like Victor Johnson, who plays with Sammy Hagar. I knew Victor when I was just starting out, and he was in the Busboys, and that's where I started learning the business. I had a mentor to tell me about this stuff, and then later when I got to know John Lee Hooker, the same thing. Always own your songs. Hey, young man, own your songs. And so that's where I learned, and then the lesson I learned from Deliverance and Intense Records, that whole deal with the publishing, because I wrote the hit songs for the first Vengeance album, and I didn't get paid any of that money that was released on the initial release of that album, which was on uh, it was Restless Distribution, through Enigma, and that whole first run, they didn't pay me anything, like I
Wow.
said, it took till the band was broke up years after I finally, they even changed ownership, where I reached out and said, hey, I never got any royalties from any of these songs. And they looked me up and like, oh yeah, we owe you some. But but they don't tell you how much. It's just, okay, well, here you go. And then now every quarter I get a statement, and I do get a little bit of money, but you know, and all total by the end of the year, between everything, I'll maybe make about $400 or $500 in royalties, on a good year. Some years I don't make anything,
Well, that's still a little, it's gas in the tank. Maybe you can have a hotel or take a trip for that kind of, extra
Yeah,
income.
but it takes, to get that check, it takes a lot, but you got to realize, that they keep reissuing the Vengeance and Deliverance albums over and over and over again. And because of that, that's why, I do get paid for that, because I mean, how many versions of Human Sacrifice have there been? I mean, they just did one recently. I think the stripped down version. They did a box set.
They did a
The
gold
picture
version.
disc.
Yeah, they did a
Yeah, the
gold
gold
version like
version.
last year. So
Yeah. So so thank you, Bill, and all the other Christian labels for releasing that over and over and over again. You know, um,
it's a good
I
record.
appreciate it.
I can
Yeah,
see
I
why.
mean, yeah. I mean, it's cool, and we'll see what happens. They got a big show. They're reuniting, so they're going to play these songs again at a festival. So I'll see if I get my royalty for them playing, at a festival. So who knows?
Well, that's it, and that's another topic that I would kind of like to discuss with you, because you do know more about it than I do, and just to educate our fellow musicians here. When venues have to pay I can't remember what it's called, but a monthly like service, because they don't know if cover bands are coming in to play covers, so they have to
Right. So
pay royalty. And
yeah,
basically, you could literally go on like BMI.com and register the songs you guys the band played that night and potentially get paid for it.
yeah. So what happens in a lot of the cases? When we play, like, that's the thing, it depends on the venues. Like they pay a flat fee to ASCAP and BMI for the year, right? And it just covers everything. To get your portion of that, like I'm talking a real venue. Okay, so like, for example, would be one around, like House of Blues. Okay. So when you go play a show like that, at a certain point, they're going to want your set list and they want to know who wrote, what your publishing companies are. Okay. And so you have to fill that out. We used to have to do that all the time with Hyrax. The big venues that we play. Lance, after I was gone, Lance, that was his job to fill out the paperwork. Because Kate never liked to fill out the paperwork. But that's how it got reported. And from the time it filters all the way through the system, and you get your 0.5% of a penny, for that one show, you know. But it is, reported, So other places, other venues, it just depends, like the smaller, bars, they just pay the fee, and hey, you're just happy to, to pay to play here, you know. So
Well, I'm just saying though, but BMI offers like something. It's BMI Live, where you could literally go on and say, "Hey, we played these songs. These are registered to these people," and you can literally do it yourself. And,
yeah,
and
sure, yeah.
but bands don't know this. Like musicians do
Well,
not.
yeah, of course not. They don't want bands to know that stuff, because then they have to pay you, right? So, but
I don't
that's
know.
that's the
I'm
thing.
all about paying it forward. No pun
Well,
intended.
dude, tell me about it. I mean, that's I agree. It's like you got to learn some knowledge, in this business, because it is a business first. Art is second, to be honest. Um,
Yeah,
but
well,
we,
art's
we
been
don't
around
like to look at
forever.
we don't like to look at it that way, but it's true. I mean, the same thing with merchandise. You have to pay for T-shirts to sell T-shirts. You know, so you got to have upfront money to cover the cost to get enough T-shirts and hopefully sell them at a show to recoup the money to buy more T-shirts to sell more T-shirts. It's kind of the wheel. So
What is it they said? Art has been around forever, but the music business has only been around for like 120 years.
well, no, music business has been around longer than that. Back in the classical days where they would write and, it has always been business, man. It's always business until when they started scribing down note for note on pieces of paper and then making copies of that to send out, to the piano player at the old Western bar to play those songs. That's the music business, man. So it's been around a long, long time.
Are you telling me that caveman drawn on the walls, that's part of it too?
Well, they should get paid now because all that stuff's in museums, right? So you got to do your DNA test, right, to find out, hey, I'm related to that guy, so pay me.
But so Glenn, what do you have coming up? Just let's go over that show one more time. I think it's at the Whiskey, if I'm not mistaken. So educate
Yeah,
me a
we're
little
we're,
bit.
we're playing with Vicious Rumors, August 21st at the Whiskey. Our set time is around 9 o'clock. Um, and you can get. I think the way we're doing it is like we get a list and we leave it at the will call at the Whiskey. So we'll have some tickets available. Just email me if you need a ticket, and it's while tickets last. We only have so many. And then we booked a festival in Mexico down in it's way in the south, right where the Mayan territory is, and that's going to be October 25th. I don't remember the name of the festival though, so yeah, when I start promoting it, once we get closer, because I'm still waiting for them to send me the contract to sign. Um, And then after that, I'll be working on some Final Decree stuff in between. Another thing I'm working on too is my old Christian band Hero that was on a Cal Metal record. Robbie, the singer, and the drummer Pete and we've been toying with the idea of recording the first album that never was. We only released the 2 songs on that compilation record, and everyone always asks us, "Do you have demos? Do you have anything?" And we just have a live recording from the Waters Club, and so we decided let's take some time and record some of these songs, and that way we can make them available. So, but that's kind of an ongoing process. But that's kind of what I have musically going on right now.
Interesting. So did Dennis actually record that for you at the Waters Club?
Uh,
Dennis Norman?
I have no idea, dude. That was like 1986.
I think he was, yeah, because he worked there forever. So I was just curious.
It
Um,
might have been. I have no. I really honestly I don't remember anybody who worked there other than Al who owned it and the Saunders brothers who had the PA system there.
Interesting. Would you ever release that specific version, like as a bonus, or maybe like a standalone live show for the
Um,
band? Maybe before you
well,
kick.
yeah, the recording is kind of direct off the board, and it's a cassette recording. Um, I don't know. I mean, Rob and I talked about it. We've tried to put it in the computer and do the best we can with it. I doubt it. To be honest, I doubt it. Um,
Well, because we live in like a content generated world, so like the more content that you have that tricks the algorithms, and then that plays a part in generated income, and so it's just I don't know business,
yeah,
right?
I know. We got to trick algorithms. That's the whole thing with me and Facebook. I think some people kind of think I'm too aggressive on Facebook, but I'm like, guys, people are, Facebook is just like scrolling. So if I'm posting over and over again, it's because, well, maybe you catch it the first time, but what about the other guy in the other part of the world who hasn't? And that's kind of how I use it. It's just to kind of get the word out there. I mean, it's a tool, and, you know, it is what it is. But I know I burnt a few bridges because of posting. I do it a lot. But honestly, I don't care. It's like, well, I don't have any, record company with deep pockets doing all the marketing for me. You know what I mean? So
Well, there's a lot of bands out there too. It's not
yeah,
like
exactly.
all the
I mean, how
time.
many times I get tagged and people put my name on stuff, and I see all the time. So um, it is what it is. It's I don't care. It's always been, kind of for me, it's a fun thing. I don't take it seriously. I don't take what people say on it seriously, and get upset about. A lot of people get upset about what people type. How did they type it? Are you yelling at me because you use caps? Well, maybe I'm just bad at it, and I just, I'm terrible typer.
I can't see my keys. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly,
So,
exactly.
well, Glenn, I appreciate a moment of your time for and coming on and hanging with me. Hopefully, we could do this again and again and again. I always just enjoy talking with you, just as like two human beings, as opposed to
Yeah,
just
man.
promoting. It's just nice to have a conversation for once.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's. I'll talk your ear off if you let me. So,
I love it. I mean, and thank you seriously again for being a part of my first film. Don't Turn Your Back, the story of Heretic. I really do appreciate your insight because it really added a lot of color and clarity to the film. So thank you for being a part of
well,
it.
I appreciate that. And you know what? Because of that, there's someone put me up on IMDb, which is like, oh, you did that?
I had to do it for everybody. Yeah.
Oh, well, add a photo.
All right, send me one. Send me one and I'll add it for you. That's super easy. Yeah, I didn't know how easy that would be, but it's like super easy to do that. Smoke and
Oh,
mirrors,
that's
man.
that's cool.
So So, alrighty, Glenn. Well, please share some links real quick before we get out of here.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know any. Let's see. NoLifeTillMetal.com is where you can get our record. If you just Google Primal Iron Age or Primal Hugh Machine or just Primal, our music will come up. You can find. I mean, because Bill's got really great distribution, so we're everywhere now, which is like awesome. So. And then yeah. So if you're interested in booking us, you can email me at glennerogers@yahoo.com, and that's Glenn with two N's. Okay, and Rogers, Rogers, no D. So GlennERogers@yahoo.com, and chat with me, and we'd love to do a show.
Absolutely. And before you actually do the show in August, let's get you back on here and just talk some shop because I hardly ever do this. I only do it for special human beings. You're in that category for me. So yeah, come back on again and hang.
I definitely will, brother, and I will. I'll keep you in the loop.
I appreciate you, Glenn. Well, for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, guys, we're out of here. Cheers.
Melville.